answer lies in the heart of battle.
King of Iron Fist Tournament.
Mugen TV versus Corner.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and I'm back again with another video, and today I want to talk about fighting games. That's right, fighting games once again, and that's because it's just been on my mind lately, and a lot of you guys definitely love when I talk about fighting games, and I love to hear what your thoughts are when it comes to the topics that just pops up in my head. So this topic has really been bothering me because I was on my stream a couple of days ago, and a few of you guys had asked me, what's the future for fighting games? Where could we possibly be going? And I really sat back and thought about it for a minute, and I said, you know what, that's a good question. So let's do a video about it. So right now, currently, when it comes to fighting games, you know, we sitting right here in the midst of a pandemic. So a lot of us can't really go out and you know, participate in locals and be able to enjoy the competitive scene and that competitive life, which we also all enjoy here on this YouTube channel, of course. So right now, we really can't do any of that. So right now, online gameplay or online competing online has been very, very important, which means netcode will also has to be important. So now that I thought more and more heavily about it, and I was saying that the future of fighting games may very well be more approaching an online environment. And not fully online, but more so we're going to be seeing more online competitive play take place because no one expected this pandemic and things like this to happen, and more people are staying in their homes. So this situation had pretty much exposed the weaknesses that these developers have when it comes to their netcodes, with some exceptions like NetherRealm Studios or Mortal Kombat. Their netcode is pretty good, and of course we also have Skullgirls, which is pretty good as well when it comes to netcode. And you know, we have a few other companies out there that make some pretty good fighting games with good netcodes. And if it's a perfect example, especially when it came to Evo before it was canceled, they only selected games that had good netcode. But because of this, a lot of these developers has really been exposed, and it seems like now that netcode is an important thing moving into the future of fighting games. So now that we know that, looking at Arc System Work did make an announcement saying that they're going to go back and start adding rollback netcode to a lot of their older titles. They did it to one of their older Guilty Gear games, but they also want to move on to other Arc System titles in order to add that rollback netcode. And then, of course, King of Fighters 15, they also mentioned that they will be implementing rollback netcode during the development of the game as well. So they definitely have an idea, and they now are listening that rollback netcode is important. Let's just hope that Nintendo and Sakurai will listen as far as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is concerned, adding rollback netcode to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think that definitely help the online community or help the competitive scene for Super Smash Bros. Because they're hurting right now. So looking at that, that's pretty much what I would expect the future of fighting games to be. And another thing that came to my mind after looking into or thinking about and just assessing the whole situation about going to a more online competitive type of environment, I was thinking that maybe this would be the next golden era of fighting games, where there's going to be a lot of developers making fighting games and just giving us like hardcore and just near perfect online netcode where everybody can just sit in their homes. And now that Sony had purchased Evo, which I haven't really gave you my opinion on that, which I'll say that for another video. But can you just imagine now that if we have this improved netcode for a lot of these fighting games, now that anybody can pretty much compete in Evo, anybody can compete in any type of major, now that the netcode is much better, and you can actually sit home and sit in your bedroom and actually compete and win, you know, prizes, win money and everything like that. So I think that's probably will be the future of fighting games. Now, the current state of fighting games, and as far as gameplay and mechanics, how would that shape the future? Now, I use Guilty Gear Strive as a perfect example. We taking a game like Guilty Gear that has so much legacy to it as far as its gameplay mechanics and everything. And if you've been a fan of Guilty Gear, you have that legacy knowledge. You can leave one Guilty Gear game and pretty much move into the next and carry that knowledge over from previous titles, and you pretty much do very well for yourself. Now we're looking at Guilty Gear Strive. Guilty Gear Strive, I haven't really played Guilty Gear games like that, but just from that little bit experience from playing Rev 2 and then trying out the beta for Guilty Gear Strive, they feel like totally different beasts altogether. So if you can use Guilty Gear as this point right here at the top, and seeing what they did and by changing it and making it more accessible, but at the same time still keeping some of that flair or some of that identity of what makes Guilty Gear, I think that's the direction that a lot of these fighting games could possibly be going. You know, we already had some of the hints or from examples of Street Fighter V, where, you know, they pretty much, you know, made it accessible for everybody, but it still had some depth for fighting game players. But at the same time, it just stripped away that creativity for everybody to use their favorite characters, but use them much differently than their opponents. So everything was much more flowchart. But it seemed like that Guilty Gear Strive had found a middle point to where it's accessible, but at the same time, you're still allowed to have some room for creativity within the gameplay mechanics itself. So if fighting game or developers see what Guilty Gear Strive has done, maybe that could be a possible direction that future fighting games from other companies may adopt and may approach. Because like I said before, when it comes to fighting games in general, yes, we have the competitive players. The competitive players enjoy the game. They're the ones that give the game legs, but they're not the ones that makes the game that makes the developers their money. They got to get that casual, they got to get that mainstream base in order for them to be able to make sequels. They got to get the money from them. So in order to get them, they try to make it even more accessible for these type of players to get what they need to get from them. So that's the thing with that. So now that we have that, I want to know, like, how will they approach next year? Because next year, you know, if we're still in this pandemic, will we start to see some changes as far as the net code is concerned for games like Tekken, maybe Street Fighter V, and maybe even Super Smash Bros. Like, how would they be able to deal with this going forward if we're still happen to be in this pandemic with games that's already out, and pretty much most of these games are pretty much almost or literally at their final season. So we already about to head into the next generation of fighting games for these current generations, well, next generation hardware. So how would they approach that? So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this, because I really think that, in my opinion, that we may be stepping in a new era, or a new golden era of fighting games. We already got games like Melty Blood coming back, and which I never thought that would happen. And I'm not even a Melty Blood fan. I never even played Melty Blood. My only experience with Melty Blood was through Mugen. But the fact is that French Bread is coming back and they want to deliver a Melty Blood game. That's good for everybody. So it seemed like if we see titles like Melty Blood coming back, maybe we may see Darkstalkers later on, or maybe Rival Schools later on, or Plasma Sword, or any other fighting game like Bloody Roar coming later on. Because it's there, like the marketing is there, the technology is there. You know, you can even start these games much smaller and then build them up to be bigger franchises once again, like they did, what Microsoft did with Killer Instincts. They started off small with the first season, and then they added more characters within each season, and people still play. Because like I forgot to mention, they have the Killer Instincts have good netcode as well, so that still has a pretty healthy community. So let's just see what happens next year and moving forward. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts. What do you think the current state of fighting games is, and what do you think the future of fighting games is possibly going to be, as far as the competitive scene is concerned, and as far as, I guess you could say, online play is concerned, as far as the netcode? I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also if you want to stay up to date or you want to hear more opinions of what I think about fighting games, hit that bell to be notified. This is MugenLord signing off. See you game fiends later. Peace out.